everyone, welcome back again for this episode of Translation Differences in Genshin Impact Characters. This week we are going to be talking about the wonderful, amazing, lovely Ningguang. I normally do these videos in two parts, splitting between lore and combat because sometimes there's a lot to talk about. This one's going to be in one episode, so it might be a little bit longer since the lore parts are much shorter than the combat parts. And what I mean by that is a lot of the backstory stuff they did a pretty good job on, but for the talents and constellations, they could have used some work. So before I get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about her name, Ningguang. Ningguang means to condense light. And when you condense light, it is like a gemstone. And that gemstone would probably represent like beauty, power, wealth, all those things that also is represented by Ningguang as a character. And now on to the constellations, the main reason why I've held off on doing a video on Ningguang for so long. I mentioned in Zhongli's video where his writing is very literary and uses an older form of grammar and word choice. Ningguang's is the same and also very difficult, but also much longer to go through because it's in all of her constellations. So we're going to go step by step. Constellation 1, Piercing Fragments. 玄星尽散积云碎. My translation on the literal level is the hanging stars that fell and shattered the clouds. So these stars are coming down from the sky and they are striking the clouds and then causing everything to shatter. It does shatter some sort of like fragments, but it's missing the stars and the clouds in that very poetic sense. Second constellation, 玄机合璧正昆仑. They have it as shock effect. This has nothing to do with the Mandarin part. So let's go through 玄机合璧正昆仑. We talked about 玄机 already as the first four stars of the Yue Qixing. So these four, 合璧, came together to form something. So 合璧 is to form a wall, literally, but 合璧 can also mean to come together. And 正 means to like stabilize or maybe like subdue. I would say in this case it's more like to stabilize. And Kunlun, in this case, some of you may have heard of like Mount Kunlun as a mythical spot, and that does exist in mythology, but it's closer to a fantastical location of like, the connection between heaven and earth. I think I was doing some research and it's like Axis Mundi is a way that some people translate this as. So 玄机合璧正昆仑 means that four of these, the irritation came together to work and combine to stabilize this world or to stabilize the balance between heaven and earth. While I'm on the subject of like Xuanji and the first four stars, there are three of the seven stars that we know. We've met Tianshu. He was an NPC side character. We know Ningguang right now, which is Tianquan, and we know Yuheng is Keqing. The other two that are part of the four in the first four that we haven't met are Tianxuan and Tianji. So whether or not they appear in the game, it's a whole different question for someone else, not me. All right, this one we get a little bit closer to what I would expect if I were to translate literary Chinese into English. Majesty be the array of stars. So you notice that no one's actually talking like this right now in normal speak, but it does have a sense of poetry to it, right? 星罗数列天全灵. This one would actually mean closer to like when Tianquan arrives, all the stars will like align into their positions. So it's kind of like when someone walks into a room and all eyes look over to there and like everyone quiets down and takes their position. That's how powerful Ningguang should be because Tianquan has arrived. So all the other stars fall into place. Constellation 4 also sounds poetic. Exquisite be the Jade, outshining all beneath, but it doesn't have the same meaning as the fourth constellation in Mandarin. 攻守一心着神机 means to be able to switch between offense and defense or attacking and guarding. 一心 is to easily change. And then 着神机 is like to be able to time it perfectly with when you're going to attack and when you're going to defend. And this goes along really well with her character of knowing what moves to take and how she's always talking about other chess pieces and what's the right move. So, Constellation 5. Invincible be the Jade Screen. 重平千善正天恒. Chongping is Jade Screen, is another way to say Jade Screen. It's not the same word they use in Mandarin because in the East skill they use Xuanjiping. But this Chongping does mean Jade Screen, specifically a beautiful Jade Screen. Fun fact, this Chong is the same word in Michelle Yao's Chinese name, Yangzi Chong. Anyways, so if we think about this line, 重平千山, so there's a jade screen with 1,000 fans, and the last part, 正天恒, means to bring justice to the emperor's authority. 正 is closer to like 正义, like justice or what is right and true, and 天恒 is the power or the authority of the emperor. So, 重平千善正天恒. If we take this as a whole, not only like literally it means the jade screen 1,000 fans bring balance to the heaven's authority, I guess would be the way I would say it, but it's closer when we talk about it, and its meaning is that there's a jade screen and 1,000 fans, so it's possible that Ningguang and her 1,000 supporters are coming in to build a just world in a sense. And the last and final constellation, grandeur be the seven stars. 七星灿灿明流光. All the seven stars are very sparkly and shiny, and they all like condense and form into a flow of light. This also contains Ning and Guang, which is her name in this last constellation. So I think the grandeur of the seven stars works fine, but in the end, Ningguang is still the brightest and the star of the show, in essence.
We should look for a new investment. Mora doesn't grow on trees.
找笔新的投资吧。无论如何，摩拉都不会嫌多。
In this one, she says, no matter what, you can never have enough Mora. 无论如何，摩拉都不会嫌多. I think there's a personality difference here between Mora doesn't grow on trees and you can never have enough Mora. One is the understanding that you have to go out and get it. Another one, I feel like the way she says it is more like she understands the power of having a lot of money. And we see this later on in some of her story where she talks about if you can fix something using Mora instead of power, then you fix it using Mora. And I think that's really well done with part of her character and why it's surprising in the story when she actually does take action, the steps she takes are really quite drastic.
Liu Pavilion or Xingyue Kiosk? Which would you prefer to go to for lunch?
琉璃亭和新月轩，你更常去哪一家？
So in this one, we talk about two places, 琉璃亭, 新月轩. 琉璃亭 is like what, glazed glass garden or something. That would be the description of what the characters are. And 新月轩 is like new moon restaurant. I don't know where they got kiosk from, because if you tell me you want to go eat at a kiosk, I'm thinking like little kiosk thing in a mall to eat at, where clearly this isn't it. This is actually like a restaurant. And Shen is a common name to use for restaurants when you're naming them in Chinese. And it's also really interesting that they use the pinyin for this one, but the Jade Chamber 春玉阁 is actually translated for its meaning and not just its like pinyin. So there's a lot of difficulty when you're doing localization, because not only are you trying to figure out, well, are we keeping just the sound? Are we keeping the name? And I don't envy them at all. Like, this is a really hard decision they had to make.
Come forward, stand beside me. Do you see the Jade Chamber? At first it was just a room, and now it clouds Liyue. When the time comes that it hangs above all of the 7 nations, you shall stand by my side on that day too.
上前来，和我并肩站着。看到群玉阁了吗？它起初只有房间大小，如今却能遮蔽璃月上空。等到它的规模有朝一日笼罩七国，那时候，也这样和我并肩而立吧。
So about Jade Chamber, 群玉阁, it's not really a chamber either. 阁 is more like a hall, a pavilion. I guess it could be a chamber, quote unquote chamber, but really it's more like another word for a type of building. And also 群玉 is a gathering of jade. So while Jade Chamber does kind of get the description, it has for me like a double meaning. It could be a place where she's gathering all of her fancy jade, but it could also mean a place for people who are really rich to gather or really powerful to gather.
A slow-boiled soup of leftover chicken and pork bones drenched over some cabbage leaves. I have few culinary requirements. Having a few staple dishes like this is enough.
用老鸡和猪骨小火久煮，熬制高汤，淋在只取菜心的鲜嫩白菜上。我对饮食追求不深，平日里吃点这样的东西也就够了。
And the last one I want to talk about in terms of her lore lines is her favorite food. The way they write it in English makes it feel like it's so simple, but it's not. If you've ever made broth before, she wants a slow simmered broth made of bones from chicken and pork. And then you have to take that broth and pour it over only the center parts of bai cai, which is probably something closer to bok choy that you see, and not cabbage, but it's only the center part, cai xin, the heart of the veg. So she's very meticulous about this dish, and she's very particular about it. And it's not just something so simple. Because the more simple your dish is, the fewer ingredients you have, the less room for mistake that you have. So even though this might seem like something simple that she wants, she's probably closer to Zhongli in that it has to be very precise and exact in the way that they want it. I've mentioned this before in a couple of other videos, is the fact that there are no equivalent honorifics in English for a lot of these things that they do in Mandarin. So Ningguang in her character story 2 has 2 different honorifics based off of who is talking about her. She has Ningguang Daren for the adults who talk about her. Um, this one, 大人, that they use in the translation for one of Barbara's hangout is Barbara-sama. For those of you who are really deep into anime and other things like that, it's pretty much the same. It's like an honorific for someone who is of higher social status than you are. So it's like big person is the literal translation for this. So Ningguang Daren is a way to put someone in a social state above you when you add that honorific. The second honorific she has in her character story too is Jie Jie. I talked about this in Beido's story a little bit about Jie. It just means big sister, so they're like big sister Beido. So, and this one is the kids are like big sister Ningguang. So there's a very distinct closeness when people start using these titles along with the name. I saw a tweet the other day is that people who don't understand these honorifics will never understand the existential crisis when a kid calls you jie jie to like ai when you've gone from big sister to auntie. And at my age, it's like, I definitely feel that. And let's move on to some of the more fun parts, her combat lines. I am not exactly happy with the way the voice direction went with this because I think in the Mandarin one, she still holds herself in this graceful, elegant position, even though she's fighting. But then the English lines, I feel like they once again do the same thing they did with Zhongli, is they make them sound angry and combative. So I feel that there's a lot of the character gets lost when they're in quote unquote combat mode.
It's nothing.
雕虫小技，
Don't waste my time.
别白费功夫。
So 雕虫小技 doesn't mean it's nothing. 雕虫小技 specifically means like small tricks or things not worth mentioning. I guess a better way, what if I were to translate this in English, it will be closer to something like you're weak. 别白费功夫 is closer to like quit wasting your effort rather than don't waste my time. So she's in a state where it's like, I'm so much better than you that you really shouldn't waste your effort.
Submit!
向我臣服吧，
Goodbye!
永别了。
These are her old lines. So 向我臣服吧. It does mean submit, but it's more in the sense of submit to me because I am going to be like a higher ranking person than you. 臣服 specifically is more or less like bowing down before someone because you are accepting that they are going to rule over you. And in this one, 永别了 is more like farewell, goodbye forever. I can't kind of feel like goodbye doesn't carry the connotation of 永别了. For her attack talents, her auto attack, Sparkling Scatter. This one I absolutely hate, for the sole reason that the Mandarin one is 千金值, literally means to throw 1,000 gold. She's throwing money at you. And this one actually has roots back in a lot of wuxia literature and stuff like that. People did throw money as a form of like a hidden weapon if they needed a ranged attack and they didn't have one. They had coins that they would throw. And this gets incorporated into a lot of other wuxia and xianxia games where you can literally take your gold and throw it to do damage to the enemy. So instead of Sparkling Scatter, this is more like throwing money, making it rain kind of deal, but painful. It also kind of shows how filthy rich she is. She's at the point where she's so rich, it doesn't matter that she can use it as weapons. But it also kind of fits too for her character because she does mention that if you could solve a problem with Mora, you solve it with Mora. You don't need to do anything else. Her elemental skill, Jade Screen, Xuanji Ping. Xuanji is actually a specific set of stars. It specifically means the first 4 stars of the 7 stars, so the Yue Qixing. So Xuanji is talking about the first 4 in the formation. And the screen is correct. I guess they didn't really have a good way to do like 4 stars screen. Why would you have 4 stars when you have Qixing? Her Q, Star Shatter, sounds great. Misses the meaning. The meaning in the Mandarin one is 天权崩玉. 天权 is her position. She is the 天权星. 崩玉 means to shatter the jade. So she is shattering something very valuable when she does her ult. For her passives, I don't think any of her passives pass my personal translation preferences. 奇石珠宝录. 奇石珠宝录 is like a record or like a book of precious stones or rare stones and gems. They have a trove of marvelous treasures for her English. And it's not that she has a trove, she just has a book so she knows what's valuable and what's not. 心仪试转, they have it as backup plan. Literally translated, it means stars moves and the power shifts. This sounds more like a wuxia move where you can quickly do a counter move and turn things around and change your situation. And I think that's closer to what the meaning should be, like a perfect counter than like a backup plan. It's like all according to plan kind of deal. This last one, strategic reserve, kind of fits, but it doesn't follow the idiom that it's using. Is 除之千日，用之一刻. Is to keep saving up, to save for 1,000 days, only to use it all at once in a moment. And that's it for what I have to say about Ningguang and her translation differences. Thank you so much if you've been keeping up with my videos. I'm going to be busy the next couple of weeks, so I don't know when I'll be able to make another video. Hopefully, I'll be able to keep making these at some sort of regular cadence, but as things happen with real life, things may change. So, thanks again for watching my video. Don't forget to like and subscribe to keep up to date. Have a good one.